finally made it out of the hellhole, post-apocalyptic, polluted landscape that is Delhi.
Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy.
India is dirty.
कैसा है?
India is messy.
खाना अच्छा?
There are many slums in India like Dharavi.
Like the slum tourism overtook Taj Mahal.
There are litters lying around the road in many places.
नाम क्या है?
There are political posters on the walls in many places.
Cute. Wow, look at her.
That's the image most foreigners have about India.
You'll be driving up somewhere in Himachal Pradesh, up in the mountains, and people will just be throwing their litter everywhere.
Probably many Indians are just used to it. But wait, until I take you to a state which used to be an independent kingdom until 1975. This kingdom was very similar to Bhutan, whose foreign policy and defense were managed by India, but internal policies were governed by the monarch. If you have been able to guess the state, then it's great. But if you haven't, then I will give you a few hints. Here is the first hint. This is the first and only 100% organic state in the world. That means the fruits, vegetables, cardamom, spices, and tea grown here don't use chemical fertilizers. Since I talked about cleanliness in the beginning, here is your second hint. It is the first open defecation free state of India way before the Modi government launched Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Okay, by now I think you would have guessed it already. I'm talking about Sikkim, a beautiful state in the lap of Himalayas. In this video, I will show you around Sikkim and compare Sikkim to various European countries to ensure that the title and the thumbnail of this video are not really clickbaits.
मैं अभी गैंगटॉक में खड़ा हूँ। अभी MG मार्ग के पास हमने होटल लिया था। वहाँ से अभी हम चालू कर रहे हैं चांगू लेक नाथू ला पास के लिए। ये हमारा डे 1 का ट्रिप है। अभी 9:30 बज रहा है दिन का। थोड़ा लेट हो गया हूँ, लाइक आधा घंटा 1 घंटा लेट हो गया हूँ। तो लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि हम लोग मेकअप कर सकते हैं।
हम लोग का 2 घंटा का ड्राइव है यहाँ से। अभी पहले से रोड अच्छा है ना सर? क्योंकि अभी ये जो फर्स्ट लॉकडाउन में एक नया रास्ता खुला है, नया बनाया है ना, इसलिए समय कम लगता है। पहले तो 3, साढ़े 3, 4 घंटा लगता था।
India started developing infrastructure in Sikkim after the Doklam standoff between India and China in 2017. The Pakyong airport was inaugurated near Gangtok in 2018. In 2020 October, during the lockdown, India also inaugurated another alternate route to NH 310. So this NH 310 takes you from Gangtok all the way to Natu La Pass. So that's what our tour guide Pema Bhaiya was earlier trying to explain, that the new road has reduced the traffic congestion and reduced the time travel from Gangtok to Natu La. So now India is building so much other roads and other infrastructure to Gangtok as well. India is also building 2 other highways which are planned to be completed by the end of 2024 or early 2025. So these are NH 717A and NH 717B. So the NH 717A is going to take you from New Jalpaiguri to Gangtok. It is going to reduce the distance between NJP to Gangtok by 50 kilometers. So currently if you have to reach Gangtok, one of the most common ways is to arrive at New Jalpaiguri by train or any other means, and then you take a car to Gangtok.
हाय गाइस, मैं अब न्यू जलपाईगुड़ी रेलवे स्टेशन पे पहुंच चुका हूं। यहीं से चालू होता है मेरा सिक्किम का जर्नी। पूरी कामाख्या नगर ट्रेन से मैं आया, तो कुछ 17 आवर्स का जर्नी था, बट 2 घंटे की ट्रेन डिले था, तो 19 आवर्स लग गया। तो यहाँ से मैं कुछ खाना वाना करके, लंच करके फिर निकलता हूँ गैंगटॉक के लिए। तो मैंने पहले से प्री बुक कर दिया है टैक्सी। सो इन जनरल आप अगर गैंगटॉक जाना चाहते हो तो गैंगटॉक के लिए आपको 2 मेजर रूट्स है। या तो आप बागडोगरा के थ्रू से जा सकते हो, या तो आप न्यू जलपाईगुड़ी पहुंच गए, फिर वहां से आप कैब वैब करके आगे जा सकते हो।
It took us nearly 5 hours of journey to go from New Jalpaiguri to Gangtok. We had to take this journey via NH10, and NH10 is the lifeline of Sikkim at the moment, and it is the only highway that connects New Jalpaiguri to Gangtok. That's why there is a lot of traffic congestion on this route, and at the same time it is also prone to landslides. So this new 717A is going to make your journey much more smoother. So if you are watching this video 1 or 2 years down the line, then probably your journey to Sikkim is going to be much more smoother. Then there is another road, NH 717B. So this road is going to connect New Jalpaiguri to Natu La Pass directly via the old Silk route and Juluk town. So this route is going to be very, very scenic. I'm going to show you Juluk and Nathang Valley later in this video as well. So that part is very, very beautiful. So you can do a homestay near Juluk and then go to visit Natu La Pass as well. Since I'm already talking about infrastructure, let's see how Sikkim fares with other European countries in terms of its infrastructure. In order to compare the infrastructure between different countries, you should take into account factors like the rail density, road density, the telecom penetration, electricity penetration, airports, etc. The World Economic Forum publishes a competitiveness report that takes into account infrastructure of different countries. If you look at this data from 2017, then India ranks ahead of countries like Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Macedonia, Albania, Romania, Moldova, all these countries in terms of infrastructure. The World Bank also uses this data. Although this data compares the infrastructure level of different countries, I decided to look at more state level data. Recently, Care Ratings published a report where it ranked various Indian states in terms of its infrastructure. In that report, Sikkim ranked number 3 in India. If you look at the data from the Ministry of Highways and Transportation published in 2019, density of national highway in Sikkim is 63% higher than that of the national average. In the modern era, global warming and climate change are two major problems for the world. So when we talk about development, we should also take into account the renewable energy infrastructure of a country. So when we talk about renewable energy infrastructure, one of the major parameters is to see the percentage of electricity produced by a country from renewable sources. India produces nearly 20.5% of its electricity from renewable sources. Although there are countries like Czech Republic and Malta whose electricity production from renewable sources is much lower than that of India, there are some developed countries like France, Belgium and Poland whose percentage of electricity generated from renewable sources are less than 25 and very, very close to that of India. But would you believe if I say that around 90% of electricity produced in Sikkim are from renewable sources? So all, in terms of infrastructure, Sikkim ranks way ahead than many European countries.
तो ऐसा है, हम चलते चलते यहाँ पे कांचनजंगा का व्यू पॉइंट पे पहुँच चुके हैं. तो दिस इज़ द कांचनजंगा व्यू पॉइंट. इट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल व्यू पॉइंट, यू कैन नॉट सी एवरीथिंग प्रॉपरली. बहुत जगह ऐसा तो है कि पूरा पहाड़ जो है ना, मेन एरिया, वो बादल से ऑलरेडी ढक चुका है.
Sikkim is famous for its woolen handicrafts. The traditional woolen handicrafts of Sikkim have unique design style called Lepcha weaving style. Lepcha is one of the 3 major tribal groups in Sikkim. The other 2 tribes are Bhutias, who are immigrants from Bhutan, and Songs, who are immigrants from Nepal. We decided to buy some local handicrafts before continuing our journey to Canggu Lake. The recent growth in tourism industry in Sikkim has also given a boost to this weaving industry. Since I am talking about various industrial sectors in Sikkim, it is very important to talk about the income of skilled, educated population in the state. I think one of the important indicators to measure development is GDP per capita based on purchasing power parity. There are 2 types of GDP, nominal and purchasing power parity. Nominal GDP is absolute GDP number and it does not take into account the cost of living. For an example, the cost of a Big Mac burger in Switzerland is nearly 3 times as high as that in India. So the purchasing power parity of a person in India earning $1,000 a month is almost similar to that of a person earning $3,000 in Switzerland. So if you look at the GDP per capita of Sikkim, it is around $22,000 as of 2022. This is higher than the GDP per capita of Albania, Azerbaijan, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, Moldova and North Macedonia. The GDP per capita of Serbia, Montenegro and Belarus are very close to that of Sikkim. With a GDP growth rate of nearly 16%, Sikkim is likely to overtake these countries in the next 2-3 years.
3rd माइल चेक पोस्ट है. हम लोग अभी जा रहे हैं नथुला चंगू लेक. यहाँ आप लोग मैप देख सकते हैं, पिक्चर यहाँ पे सिल्क रोड जोलू.
3 Mile checkpost is the first checkpost on your way to Nathu La and Canggu Lake. You need to cross this checkpoint by 11 am else you will not be given further entry. We had already obtained the protected area permits through tour guide the day before. Since Sikkim is strategic to the security of India, you may need to get some permits before you visit here. So if you are an Indian citizen and you just want to visit, let's say, Gangtok, Ravangla or some unrestricted areas, you don't really need to get any permits. But if you want to visit Nathu La or Canggu Lake or Yumthang Valley or the old Silk Route, Juluk, then you need to get a protected area permit. You can get this protected area permit through some registered tour guides. I will put a link in the description about the registered tour guide that I use. You can contact this guy and then you can book through him. If you are a foreign national planning to visit Sikkim, then you should know about two types of permit. One is the restricted area permit and one is the protected area permit. So the restricted area permit is something that you can get as you try to enter Sikkim at the border. Let's say you are going to enter Gangtok. At the first checkpoint, the police will check your passport, your Indian e-visa, and then they will issue you a restricted area permit free of cost. So you can use that permit to visit unrestricted areas in Sikkim, let's say Gangtok or Ravangla or Namchi. But if you want to go and explore some hiking trails or Yumthang Valley or Canggu Lake, then you would need to apply for a protected area permit. Unfortunately, foreign nationals are not really allowed to visit Natu La Pass, Juluk or the old Silk Route.
So guys, I'm here at 14,140 feet above the sea level at Natu La Pass. So as you can see, this is the point beyond which photography is not really allowed. So people are trying to capture this moment, and there is a lot of crowd at this point where it says the height. So I will show you something interesting. Look at those towers which are above the mountain. You can see the coast from China.
This is Nathu La Pass, which lies on the famous Silk Route. Buddhism was introduced to Tibet through this pass, but this is also the place where India had a historic victory over China in September 1967 during the Second Indo-Sino War. When Chinese troops opened fire on Indian military forces, Indian troops managed to successfully push back the Chinese aggression. 88 Indian soldiers were martyred and more than 340 Chinese soldiers lost their lives.
I could see that no one from China is living in those areas, but they have built a big infrastructure. They have placed their armies over there. People say that nationalities don't matter. People say that borders don't really matter. But try visiting a bordering area. Try visiting a war-torn area.
There are over 100,000 Tibetan refugees living in India, and around 7,000 of them live in Sikkim. After China invaded Tibet in 1950s, India gave asylum to Tibetans, including the Dalai Lama.
The Chinese army already crushed around 7,000 to 8,000 Tibetan soldiers.
In fact, the Tibetan government in exile is currently based in Dharmasala, Himachal Pradesh, India.
One of the least free country in the world where you have no access to diplomats, no access to journalists, no access to even ordinary travelers. So that's what China tries to do, block away Tibet, make it like a huge prison.
The border force guarding the India-China border is actually called the Indo-Tibet Border Force. The history of Tibet is very painful, and I'm not going to go into the depths of this in this video, but I hope that one day Tibet becomes an independent nation.
We don't have any opportunity that what Chinese citizens have. For example, very simple. In China, they do 1 million passports every day, but Tibetan people, you cannot have a passport.
As an Indian, I partly blame the Indian government for not doing enough to protect the sovereignty of Tibet. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
I just came from the top of Natu La, and this is where there is the India-China border. If you talk to the army officers over there, if you see those areas, then you will definitely feel the sensation of being an Indian. Trust me, the experience is surreal.
Visiting Nathu La was a goosebumps moment. After Nathu La, we continued our journey on the Silk Route to Juluk town and Thambi viewpoint. It's this viewpoint that I have seen countless times on the internet, and it was definitely on my bucket list.
चाइना का गाड़ी और यहाँ पे सामान एक्सचेंज होता है इंडिया चाइना का ट्रेडिंग मार्केट होती है
यहाँ पे आगे का
ये एरिया का चाइना की गाड़ी इंडिया में 6 किलोमीटर अलाउड है ज्यादा.
India-China border trade at Natu La had taken a big hit after the first India-China war in 1962. The border trade between India and China was suspended until 2006. The Nathu La border trade reopened again in July 2006, and ever since this has boosted the economy of both countries. There are some interesting viewpoints on this Silk Route journey.
पूरा का पूरा एरिया क्लाउड से भरा पड़ा है, मतलब यहाँ का व्यू कुछ और ही है.
View of the foggy Himalayan mountains, the elephant lake, the greenery of Nathang Valley were something we will cherish for a long time.
ये वाला एक एलिफेंट लेक है, इसका जो शेप है ये एलिफेंट जैसा दिखता है. सो ये जुलूक जाते हुए ये रास्ते में आता है.
We kept stopping on the way to fly drone near the Nathang Valley, and the view was definitely amazing.
कांचनजंगा जो है ये इंडिया का हाईएस्ट पीक है, ये वर्ल्ड का थर्ड हाईएस्ट पीक है. जो पहला जो दो हाईएस्ट पीक्स है जो माउंट एवरेस्ट और केटू वो नेपाल में आता है, लेकिन कांचनजंगा जो है वो इंडिया में आता है. और यहाँ पे एक अच्छा खासा व्यू पॉइंट है जो जुलूक में हमने जाते हुए नोटिस किया, और यहाँ पे हमने स्टॉप करके होल्ड करके थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे व्यू देख रहे हैं, फोटो खींच रहे हैं.
As we ventured further into the Thambi viewpoint, the weather became foggy.
So I am now in Thambi viewpoint. थाम्बी व्यू पॉइंट में यहाँ पे एक स्पाइरल रोड जो है ना बहुत ही फेमस और बहुत पिक्चरिस्क व्यू है वो दिखता है, लेकिन आज यहाँ पे फॉगी है तो यहाँ पे देखना बहुत ही मुश्किल है. यहाँ पे ड्रोन भी ट्राई किया मैंने उड़ाने का, और ड्रोन उड़ाते टाइम वो पूरा हाई अल्टीट्यूड का सिग्नल देना चालू कर दिया, और फिर व्यू भी इतना क्लियर नहीं था. तो मैं दिखाऊंगा ये ड्रोन शॉट कैसा आया, बट वो इतना खास नहीं था.
Despite waiting for nearly 30 minutes for the view to clear up, I couldn't see the serpentine roads at Thambi. So that was a downside of visiting Sikkim in December. You are better off visiting Sikkim in summer months of May to July. It was also a harsh moment of realization for me. You can plan everything to perfection and still miss something. It reminded me of this beautiful dialogue from the Bollywood movie.
जितना भी ट्राई करो बनी लाइफ में कुछ ना कुछ तो छूटेगा ही. तो जहाँ है वहीं का मजा लेते हैं.
After this brief disappointment, we headed to our last point on the old Silk Route.
बाबा हरभजन जी का टेम्पल है जो ओल्ड टेम्पल है, ये वाला है. देयर आर टू टेम्पल्स, तो एक है नया टेम्पल और जो नाथुला पास के पास है, और ये जुलूक जाते हुए रास्ते में ये इनका जो ओल्ड टेम्पल है वो आता है. बहुत सारे लेजेंड्स हैं, बहुत सारे मिथ हैं, और बाबा हरभजन जी जो हैं ये आर्मी में थे. ये एक टाइम घोड़े सवारी करते टाइम कहीं गिर गए थे, गिरने के बाद इनकी डेथ हो गई, लेकिन कुछ दिनों के बाद ये उनके दोस्तों के सपने में आए और उन्होंने बताया कि यहीं पे ये गिर गए थे. तो यहाँ पे इनका समाधि टाइप का बना के यहाँ पे एक मंदिर बना दिया गया. उन्होंने अपना ड्यूटी मरने के बाद भी किया, ऐसा मानना है. आज भी इनका सैलरी पेंशन इनके नाम पे बैंक अकाउंट सब बना हुआ है. बाबा हरभजन जी को पोस्टुमसली 2006 में मेजर का अवार्ड दिया गया. देख रहे हो चारों रिलीजन का यहाँ पे सिंबल है. इट्स इरेस्पेक्टिव ऑफ रिलीजन, इट्स मोर अबाउट रेस्पेक्ट. ये बाबा जी का बंकर है.
Since it gets dark around 4:30 p.m. in December, we decided to call it a day. Gangtok has a very vibrant nightlife.
If you are in Gangtok, then do check out the street food over here. It's really good and really amazing.
There are also plenty of traditional Tibetan, Bhutanese and Nepali restaurants in Gangtok. If you are a fan of live music, there are also some nice bars in Gangtok. Sikkim is a very safe state to explore. Talking about safety, I think security and political stability are an important parameter of development. It has been fairly politically stable ever since it joined India and became a democracy in 1975. If you rank countries by the rates of international homicides or murders, countries like Russia, United States, Ukraine, Latvia, Moldova and Liechtenstein stand ahead of India. Sikkim has recently been recognized by the World Book of Records as a crime-free state. Although I couldn't find the exact meaning or definition of crime-free, I think it means that there are no organized crimes or terror-related activities in the state. If you look at the intentional homicides or murders, it's 2.1 per 100,000 people in Sikkim, and this brings Sikkim's homicide rates below the countries like Lithuania, Montenegro, Albania, Belarus, and even Canada. One of the prominent reasons why India sees very less influx of female travelers is the concern around women's safety. Although there are several crimes against women, I will just touch the most violent crime other than murder. As per the National Crime Bureau, 31,677 cases were registered in India in 2021 and 8 cases were from Sikkim. For a population of 670,000 or roughly the size of Montenegro, this gives a rate of nearly 1.1 per 100,000 people. If I have to trust the numbers, the number of such cases in France, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway and Spain are startling. I was really surprised when I saw the numbers of reported rape cases in France. The number was really very close to that of India, although such cases against women are grossly underreported in India. But if I take the population into a factor, then France has 22 times less population as that of India. Should I start calling France as the rape capital of Europe? I would leave it up to the viewers to decide the state of women's safety in India, but I can definitely vouch for Sikkim. Sikkim is a very safe state even for solo travelers and women. I was really amazed by the participation of women in the labor market and politics in Sikkim. 48.2% of all legislators, senior officials and managers in Sikkim are women. As per a recent survey, Sikkim is the best place to work for women in India. Although I had a first-hand experience of watching a lot of women in Sikkim running businesses, opening shops and participating in the labor market, but when I did a number crunching, I was really surprised. More than 58% of women in Sikkim participate in the labor market. On the contrary, if you compare that to the national average of India, it's somewhere around 29, which is like half of that of Sikkim. This is better than even countries like France, Germany, Spain, Portugal and Finland.
आज हमारा डे 2 का ट्रिप चालू हो गया। आज कहाँ जाएंगे भैया?
आज हम लोग अभी जाकरी फॉल्स जा रहे हैं। अभी हम लोग स्टार्ट करने वाला है।
अच्छा ठीक है। बन जाकरी फॉल्स, फिर उसके बाद मोनास्ट्री वगैरह आज घूमना है।
Sorry for abruptly interrupting this video. I realized that this video is actually becoming longer, so I decided to break this vlogumentary into 2 parts. In this video, I showed you the East Sikkim. In the second part of this video, I am going to show you the West and South Sikkim. And I will also share so many other interesting facts about Sikkim. So stay tuned for the part 2 of this video. There are 2 reasons why I decided to make this video. The first reason is actually very, very personal to me. When I visited Sikkim for the first time, I was really surprised, like really totally taken aback, because it felt like as if I visited a totally different country. Sikkim has a very unique culture. In fact, if you visit every state of India, each state would feel like one country because of the variations in language and culture, the food. So each state of India is like one country. But Sikkim felt so different. And when I started looking at the facts and statistics, that actually blew my mind. So Sikkim is one of my favorite states of India, and I really like Sikkim. The second reason why I made this video is actually the portrayal of India by Western tourists and Western media in general. I was really deeply hurt when I came to know that more people visit the slums of Dharavi than the Taj Mahal or other beautiful architectures in the country. Yes, India has some of the dirtiest rivers in the world, but at the same time, India also has the cleanest river in Asia. Yes, India does have some of the dirtiest villages in the world, but at the same time, India also has the cleanest village in Asia. India has so much to offer. It's a land of contrasts, and it offers a broad spectrum of things. So if you just portray one part of India or just the negative side of it, that's not the complete picture of India. Unfortunately, a lot of people who visit the country just see 1 or 2 areas and just visit those places which perpetuate their stereotypes. In order to experience India properly, you need to experience both the positive as well as the negative side to it. I hope through this video I was able to bring some fresh perspectives. If you like this video, do consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps the YouTube algorithm. See you in the part 2 of this vlogumentary.
India, a country that lacks a lot of infrastructure, a country that has extreme poverty. I think more than 700 million Indians don't have access to a toilet. Really? Should they really be spending this sort of money on a space program?